Now, this is LSAT Prep Test 146, Section 4, Passage 2. This one is about whether art really reflects the values of the elites who paid for it. Medium difficulty passage. What makes it tricky is that the author's attack builds slowly. You might not even realize how aggressive the argument is until you're already past it. Now, this is a humanities passage. The author is dismantling a popular method of art criticism. The main point is treating art as a mirror of elite ideology does not actually survive contact with actual history. Now, this passage is not about two ways art gets made. That distinction is a tool, and the author uses it to break the critic's argument open. Now, the most important paragraph here is the last one, but you're not going to understand why unless you track what the author is building toward in paragraphs 3 and 4. So we're going to walk through the whole thing. Paragraph 1 is set up, but it's doing something sneaky. The author introduces socio-historical criticism and names Taruskin as the main example. These critics say art is produced by and for elites. Sounds reasonable, but then watch what happens at the end of the paragraph. The author says these critics fail to clarify something. And that word fail is doing real work, it's not neutral. The author is already telling you these critics are sloppy. You don't want to blow past that. Read paragraph 1 at a normal speed, but pay attention to the twist at the end. Then paragraph 2 lays out the distinction. Two ways elites were involved in art. First way, you hire a big name artist to show off. The house looks impressive, but you can't stand living in it. The art says something about your wallet, not your worldview. Second way, you commission art that actually expresses your beliefs. The Vatican frescoes are the example here. And this paragraph is a pretty smooth read. You want to move through it fast, but hold on to the distinction because the author's about to use it. Then paragraph 3 is about where you got to slow way down. The author says critics like Taruskin only deal with art made the second way, which makes sense for them. If art reflects elite ideology, you could write a whole book about what the elites believed. But the author plans two conditions that have to hold for this approach to work. The elite has to actually agree on something. They've got to have a recognizable identity and some kind of shared worldview. And you also have to be sure the artist didn't just ignore the patron's wishes and do their own thing. Now, these conditions sound totally fair when you read them, but that is the trap. The author is setting up requirements that the next two paragraphs are going to blow apart. Paragraph 4 is where they start pulling out the rug. The author brings in Matthew Arnold. Arnold looked at 19th century English society and saw two groups. The aristocrats were barbarians. They were engaged in fox hunting and gambling. The middle class were Philistines, obsessed with looking respectable. Neither group had taste that produces lasting art. And so, where did the good artists end up? On the margins, working for some rich eccentric who did not represent the establishment at all. And that eliminates the first condition from paragraph 3. If the elites could not agree on what good art even was, you can't claim the art reflected their shared values. There were no shared values. Then paragraph 4 is the knockout punch. A lot of enduring art was paid for by elites who didn't want it. They funded it unwillingly and with misgivings. And so now the critic has a problem. The art survived, it clearly matters, but the people who wrote the checks actively disapproved of it. And so what does Taruskin's approach do? The author says it has to go Freudian. It has to claim the art secretly embodied elite ideals that the elites themselves could not see. Now, stop and think about what the author just did. The method started out sounding like a smart way to read art history, and now it is reduced to claiming hidden unconscious meanings in art the patrons openly hated. That is not a minor criticism. The author is saying the whole framework becomes unfalsifiable. You can never disprove it because it can explain anything. Now, the key move here is the logical trap the author builds across paragraphs 3 through 5. Paragraph 3 names the conditions. Paragraph 4 destroys one. Paragraph 5 destroys the other and shows what happens when the critics try to save the theory anyway. You want to read paragraph 1 and 2 at a pretty normal speed, but slow down hard at paragraph 3, because those two conditions are the core of the entire argument. Paragraphs 4 and 5 move pretty fast once you know what they're attacking. Now, the author thinks the socio-historical approach is broken, not incomplete, but fully, fundamentally broken. The main trap is reading this as a balanced discussion. The author gives Taruskin's view real space in paragraphs 1 through 3. That makes it feel even-handed, but it's not. Every paragraph after paragraph 2 is tearing the method down. If you think the author is neutral, you're going to get main point and author's attitude questions wrong. Before you hit the questions, you want to make sure you're clear on three things. First, why does the author bother separating two ways art was produced for elites? Second, why does Matthew Arnold show up in this argument at all? And third, what is the author saying about the critics' method when they compare it to Freudian analysis?